Hey everyone, Vicente Cruz, Oakland Green Party, St. Abe report, and I've actually been back a while from the response to the pro-Trump rally, which I guess was in a response to the Milo Yiannopoulos thing that happened up in Berkeley. When I first got there, I will say too that I ended up having to do chores and took a police baton to the face. No bruising or anything, but it definitely gave me a little ring. So um, was feeling a little dizzy. But start from the beginning. When we first got there, I took Doe with me. Odysseus came and was well received. Everyone was playing tug of war with him, and we're sitting around. And actually, when we first got there, um, well, I probably would say up until the end, there was more actual Trump supporters than there were anti-Trump supporters, which was a little disheartening. I had conversations with some other young anarchists as well about that, and self-identified. And so there was actually police presence the whole time. They actually had it separated so there was two separate groups, and everything was fine. But then the police kind of crawled off into their own little areas and let the park be free. So they were on the outskirts of the park over by the Berkeley Public High School and the public library and the old post office. And then the crowd started to mingle, started to get together. So my first thought right there would be that that was done on purpose, right? It's like, oh, nobody's really challenging the police lines and yelling at each other. Let's get the hell out of the way and let them mingle and see what's going to happen. Um, Let me also interject there too that this particular call out of Trump supporters was also supposed to be supported by a group of 25 actual um, self-identified like white nationalists called the American Patriots. That did not seem to show up, um, which is good. But so then, as the crowd started to mingle, and of course arguments started to happen, and the first violence I saw was instigated by Trump supporters, and but unfortunately in this one where people all masked up, black bloc tactics showed up, and honestly would I characterize them in my other YouTube video as for this particular day were the defenders of the people, and a big shout out to the new Black Panther Party, who also were defenders of the people on this particular day, the violence that took out during the day between the two groups. And although I will say that the Black Panthers also weren't masked up, it's like you didn't really give a fuck. So they started, and there was a bit of violence. I ended up having to put the dog away because both sides actually had brought pepper spray and mace and things, and there were smoke bombs and things being thrown off. So I put the dog away and then started to mingle. And so every time this happens to me, I'm always surprised. I ended up having more of a de escalator role, it seemed like, during the day, trying to stop violence, except for the one time where the Trump supporter was going to hit this woman. And I kind of in front of her, I was like, oh, you're definitely not going to hit a woman here today in front of me. Um, and so there was a mix of violence. And when I say violence, I mean straight up fights too. The first real damage was done that I saw. I can only go from my own experience. Was a Trump supporter who ended up getting punched over the head somehow, and his nose was broken because he was bleeding profusely from the nose, and then he ended up getting another head injury, and needed stitches. He should have went to the hospital, but then ended up staying. And those melees went back and forth. But then at the end, and I guess this is a good time to say too, where we may not have had the numbers, but we are better fighters apparently, because it ended up the Trump supporters ended up going to, well, and probably this had to be with because the Trump supporters were not necessarily like they weren't. I mean, there was a young and actually really diverse on both sides, which is weird, but um, again, probably without the actual neo Nazis showing up, um, then they didn't have anyone that probably had any sort of maybe fighting skills. But either way, so the violence was definitely going. Um, Again, if you were sharks and jets, it was definitely going more towards sharks. We were the sharks, they were the jets, and they decided to turn it into a march. But as the march started leaving, then all of the anti-fascist groups followed, but then those stopped where there would be some fighting and got brought into smaller groups, and actually that's when it kind of dispersed. And then back at the park where I went back, this is probably by now around 5 o'clock. There were still not very many Trump supporters at all, but a lot, a lot of self-identified anarchists and people masked up, black bloc. And there was a gentleman, which the video is already up, where he had pulled a knife out on this person, a person of color, and the police saw it. He was like licking the knife and threatening people with it, and the cops did nothing. Then there was like eggs thrown at him later during the day, and then about an hour later, it was just like, okay, oh, I forgot. So as it was winding down, I was about ready to get home, and there was eggs thrown, and police started targeting people. And this is on both sides. Oh, that's another one. I guess I should, give credit where credit is due. Although they allowed the violence to happen when they were finally making arrests, they were doing it on both sides. It wasn't just singling out. But of course, the separates a lot of or the way that they treated, of course, people of color, black men. It was not the same the way they were treating white women and white men. Again, back credit to one of those white women happened to be a member of the new Black Panther Party. They detained her, searched her bags, didn't find anything. They uncuffed her and let her go. Treated her with real respect, the way that they should treat everyone anytime they're trying to make an arrest. Even if they do see the person throw eggs and target. But anyway, so when eggs were being thrown and they targeted this person and grabbed him to be arrested, and then the police, as they normally do, started gathering around, back up. I actually was not paying attention, keeping it 100. I was waiting to do an interview on KPFA for the evening news about what had happened. So I was answering a text and didn't see that the cops were trying to push people back. Dude, cop came, pushed me, and that's where I got the baton. And then he went to do it again. And, I actually defended myself. I'm surprised I'm not in jail, because normally if you raise your arm to try to block from a blow, they consider that assault on a police officer. But my grandmother, ancestors were watching out for me, and it didn't happen. Good thing, because I had the dog in the car and stuff too. And that was kind of one reason why I was like, oh, when I had the boy, it's like I really shouldn't have took him. Anyway, so that happened, and then it winded down, and I went home. So the critique again through the end is in our Bay Area bubble, more Trump supporters came out on this day when there was an actual call for violence. And if the actual Nazis had shown up and it was real violence and weapons and all that, the only way I feel that to combat that without violence would have been to have way more numbers. Because if you had more, they just, they wouldn't do any shit. But they didn't, Bay Area bubble didn't show up. There was way more Trump support, not way more, about 100 more. But we fight better, scared them off. The police treated black people how they treat black people. And it ended up, I think, still winning for the system, because they would love it that we argue amongst ourselves. And I would still put out that some of those young people who are so-called Trump supporters, who are probably in tons and tons of college debt, like a lot of other kids, are just as much cogs in the machine as the slaves that are inside of the private prison complexes and all the shit that happens, right? That they don't matter to, the Pences and the current administration and those 1%ers, as we're labeling them now. So it was still a win for them. But it would have been nice to show, I guess it's both ways, where at least we can keep it 100 and realize that we don't live in a Bay Area bubble and not as safe as we think we are. We probably are in our own circles. We're hanging around, as a registered Green Party member, self-identified social anarchist, when I'm hanging around my circle of friends, yeah, it's all cool. But when you take a step out the door, you never know. All right. Anyway, be well all. And I guess it's down to Bakersfield for the state Green Party convention next week. Peace.